Welcome to the Breathing Edge podcast. Today,
where we breathe.
We're going to talk about syncing the mind-body system. And this is an interesting concept. It's kind of at the core of a lot of what we talk about when it comes to having or getting the breathing edge. So what really is syncing the mind-body system, and how does that affect getting the edge?
Where to start? We'll start here. The head, the heart, and the gut. So we look at these three areas, and I guess to keep it real simple, Eastern philosophy has the chakra systems. They can be anywhere from 7 to 12 areas in the body that they talk about you focusing energy, and that they have different references to different things. Well, we're busy Westerners and we like to keep it simple. So we're just going to keep it to these three areas. Now, what we do know about these three areas, and science is now telling us this, you can Google this and we'll find many different references, is that there is actually a little brain in your gut, and I've heard it being referenced as about the size of a cat's brain. And there is a brain in your heart. The cells in your heart are actually the same type of cells that are in the brain. Interestingly enough, in the gut is where most of your serotonin is produced, and you hear a lot about gut health right now. So
now that's a whole nother podcast.
It is a whole nother podcast, and we will have an expert on to talk about that, because gut health is
very important.
But coming back to this, so we often only operate from the brain that's in our head. And it's only a third of the picture, and you're ripping yourself off if you are only operating from the brain in your head. When we wrote our book, some of the research that we came across, there was an article that was written. It was the Harvard Gazette article that was written by a couple of psychologists, neuroscientists there, that were talking about you wasting 46.9, so it's roughly 47% of your brain power on just useless stuff. Your mind wandering. Now, this article was written in 2010. However, if you think about it, do you waste time or waste brain power on thinking about stuff that hasn't happened yet?
So they've directly related a wandering mind with unhappiness.
Now, unhappiness is a broad subject. It could be different things for different people.
Whole nother podcast.
But just think about this from the perspective of 47% of your brain power. What would you do with an extra 47% of brain power?
Where would you put your happiness into?
Yeah. Would you focus 20% more brain power on your finances and on your business? Would you focus another 20% of brain power on, say, your relationships or your personal health? And then you've still got another 7% left over for whatever else. I mean, it's a great question to ask yourself. And if we look at, we talk a lot about the vagus nerve and we've done a bit of research on the vagus nerve, and there's lots of science on the vagus nerve. The one main thing that really interested us about it was that it was once thought that the vagus nerve, vagus, the term being a Latin term for wanderer, and what that gives reference to is that it's the biggest nerve plexus that actually it interweaves itself through most of the body's major systems, including the head, the heart, and the gut, which is what we're talking about. Now, the interesting thing about the vagus nerve is it's actually not sending signals from the brain to the body. It's actually sending signals from the body to the brain. So
there's a ratio around that. What's the ratio?
Well, it's 80-20 ratio. And they used to think that it was in reverse. They used to think it was 80% brain to body, but it is actually 80% body to brain.
So let me get this right. So when information comes in, so it could be external information, 80% of the messages are being sent to the brain, And the brain is then calculating information and sending messages back down to the body for a response.
Yes, and if you think about that from the perspective of, let's just give a broad overview here. Let's say that you're not eating the right food, or let's say you're not taking the right probiotic, and you have gut issues, you have bowel issues. I mean, how many people out there have, either problems like constipation or IBS? Give any of these which are a gut health issue. Now, if you've constantly got red alerts being sent from your gut to your head, which is competing for your time, and you're trying to do critical thinking, you're trying to make just normal day-to-day decisions, and you've got these red alerts going off, do you think it's any wonder you feel overwhelmed? Do you think it's any wonder that it's robbing you of percentages of your energy that you're using trying to think? So this is really what we want to highlight.
And I definitely want to spend a lot more time on this subject because the importance of that. And so keep an eye out for the next podcast for the gut health, because I think that's very important. We don't have time to go too deep into that. So
now we've looked at the fact that if you start recognizing and becoming aware of these other areas, you start becoming aware of the gut and aware of the heart and what involvement they have in syncing your entire system, the body-mind system. You start to engage in what we call genius thinking rather than just ordinary thinking. Ordinary thinking is using the brain only. Genius thinking is using all three. Now, that being said, if you're only making decisions from gut instinct, then you're not going to have much logic attached to it, or you're not going to have any emotion or any empathy attached to it that comes from the heart. Whereas if you're only using the heart, if you're only coming from the heart and only being emotional about things, you might get used as a doormat every now and then.
Or make illogical choices.
Yeah, exactly. So it's important that you combine all three of these.
Which sounds like a really important element in creating self-confidence or eliminating self-doubt. Because I know sometimes if I'm like, I have a gut instinct about something, I'm like, I don't feel confident about making a decision. I'm like, I think it should be like this, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, well, it's not in sync or not in harmony. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Harmonizing these three areas.
Yeah, so how do you do that?
So we use our breath to do this, and we have a visualization. We've started to use a visualization technique now. Before anyone shouts woo woo on me, yeah,
because we've shouted woo woo before.
I have a personal rule where I keep 30% skepticism for anything that I research or anything that I try. I love to be able to poke or prod or pull threads on things. So I have some skepticism. What I want to highlight here is visualization. So the method that we use is visualizing. So imagine, and you can do this. You can, if you're driving a car, you can still visualize this while you're driving. But if you imagine that you're sitting in a pool of energy and you draw that energy up through the pelvic floor, it gets filtered through the heart and it comes out the top of the head. Now we're talking about visualizing the energy doing that, but you're also using your breathing to do that. So you're drawing the energy up through all three of those areas, uniting those areas. The interesting thing about this is that there was a study done on shooting basketball hoops. And what they found was they had three groups. One group visualized shooting hoops, one group practiced shooting hoops, and one group did nothing at all. Now, the interesting thing about the group that visualized and actually practiced was that the scores weren't that much different. So if you don't think that visualizing has any effect on your physical results, then you might want to rethink it. You might want to visualize rethinking it as well.
47% of visualizing about things that worry
That's
you.
what you could spend the extra 47%.
You could do that, or you can focus it somewhere else.
So I just want to say that again. I was skeptical on this, but visualizing uniting these three areas has had an effect on the way that we have our decision making, the way that we do our decision making, and it's really, the concept here is almost about uniting ego and intuition together. If you think about, let's just say the ego is represented by the mind. A lot of people talk about slaying the ego and I've got to get rid of the ego. We're like, no, that's not how it is at all.
It's a part of you.
I like to think of the ego as a pet. Or let's think about it as a horse. You want to put the saddle on the ego and you're riding it. It's not riding you. So, so let's think about that. So, and then let's think about the intuitive part being the gut / the heart. These being these things that aren't so they're not so conscious. Let's just
loud,
say, yeah. So, using this method of drawing the energy and breathing and uniting these three will help you unite the ego and the intuition together, which will have you making far better decisions. That's our personal opinion on it.
Yeah. So therein lies the genius brain.
That's what we like. We like to term the genius thinking, or using genius brain.
We invite you to try something like that. So you can do the fountain breath for 3 minutes, or you can go to breatheme.com/active meditation. We've got a whole infographic around it there and a downloadable that you can use.
Yeah, it just explains that. It explains that simple meditation that we were just talking about that will have you unite these three areas.
Yeah. So what would be the purpose of uniting the three brains? We just talked about in the podcast before about energy management and talking about managing your own energy. Now that's kind of like, from the point of view of being fully charged, but making decisions from being fully charged. I think my experience of uniting the three brains, it's like I feel like fully charged. I feel self-confident. It starts to eliminate the self-doubt. And then I make the decision from there.
Well, that is the thing that opens up and leaves room for something else. So, we just spoke before about 46.9. Well, if you're uniting these three areas and taking the load off just the mind, then your energy is going to be different. You are going to have a lot more energy to be able to make better decisions, to be able to do things at a different capacity.
Yeah, my experience of that is having a holiday from myself. When I get out of my head and unite the three brains, I don't worry about as much anymore. So that's brilliant. Well, I'd say give that a try, certainly. Let's see how you go.
We're gonna the references that we made to the Harvard Gazette study we can put in the show notes, so you can go and check that out for yourself. But do some research on this. Have a look at the research that's been done on how much time you waste over worrying about shit that hasn't happened yet.
Right. So just to recap, syncing the mind-body system will create a rise in being able to make better decisions from a better place, and also the energy to complete the choices that you are making for yourself.
Absolutely. And so remember, it's not in the words, it's in the practice.